Hey everyone, welcome to a little bit of woo woo. I'm your host, Jill Thomas. In this show, we're going to talk about all things woo woo. I know the show started off as a little bit of woo woo and it's becoming a lot of woo woo. So today we're going to talk about channeling, and I'm so glad we're going to talk about this because it's one of those things where people think they know what it is and you're hearing about it, and a lot of authors are releasing channeled books, but I think most people don't quite know what it is. And I'm so excited to have our guest, soul coach Michele, and your co-creative life coach and friendly neighborhood woo-woo. Love that introduction. And we're going to talk about channeling. Welcome, Michele.
Thanks, Jill. I'm so excited to be here. This is one of my favorite things to nerd out about, so I'm totally pumped.
I was so glad to get you because I approached a couple of people who do channeling, because I do channeling too, but it's like nice to interview someone else and say, hey, you tell me what you think of it. But I wanted to have you because you have a sense of humor. And I think, so many people take these things so freaking seriously. It's just like going to church, right? It's so serious. Spirit is not like that. And I'm like somebody finally who gets that part. Tell us about channeling. Tell us about the guides. Tell us about that.
Okay, so where
do we start? Yes, sir.
I know. Where do I start with the
tell us what channeling is. Let's start with that, because people get confused about the different kinds of channeling. And I will say one thing. I will say, as you start to explain it, is that I learned it with different languaging than you did. It doesn't mean one of us is right and one of us is wrong. It just means that there's no dictionary for this stuff. So tell us what it is, the different kinds.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that. I think channeling, to me, comes in all forms. Everybody says, well, I'm a tarot card person, or I'm an oracle card, or I do pendulum, or I do mediumship, or I do channeling. And the funny thing is, to me, it's all the same thing. It's just how it manifests in your particular, life experience. So, I think channeling itself, to me, comes in a couple of different forms. You have the channeling that's like, people are usually familiar with, like Seth, Abraham, Bashar, all those people, and they kind of have their like, let me go get my entity, and they go like this, and then they come back. And then there are people like that I think I fall more into, where I start talking and the spirits come in and talk, and it's kind of like this weird, if it's you, me, and spirit. That's why when I put it on my website, it's you plus me plus spirit, because there's me, spirit, and you having a conversation. And I know when I do mediumship, because to me that's different. Mediumship to me is talking, being the conduit to spirit, because when you think of the definition of medium, like in the grand scheme of things, I used to be a paralegal and I used to work in entertainment. So we would say, like, when you did image releases, you release your image in any and all mediums. And the definition of medium is like the machinery that delivers, that is through which the message is delivered. So it might be your television, like it might be your cell phone or your computer, is the medium of us delivering this podcast to somebody. So when you're a medium, you're delivering the message that is in a formulation of intelligent energy, for like Grandma Edna or somebody, to your client. And then to me, channeling is more about source energy. And sometimes people, we've talked about it, like where you're like, what's the name of your person? And I'm like, I don't know. I just call it source energy, because my belief system doesn't have to have that formulation. Whereas a lot of humans like to have that formulation of, well, my friends are Jen, Edna, and Sophie. And so if I'm friends with my spirit guide, I need a name, and that name is Jane, whatever. So, but for me, I'm like, we're all source energy. So I just call it source energy because that's where it comes from. And I'm a conscious channeler. So what that means to me is, most times when people channel, they kind of have their consciousness step aside and allow the channel to come in, or there's packets of information that flow through. But for me, I stay as present as possible. I may not remember everything that's said, but I remember concepts. And sometimes, I think you and I both know, like we were talking before, that we humans have a certain way of judging behavior and words and intentions. Like right now, they're talking. And when they talk, they are very direct, for lack of a better term. And they don't really take into account the tone we attribute to things. So like if somebody says, hey, when am I going to meet my true love or whatever? Because I've been waiting, like, Charlotte on Sex and the City. It's like, I've been waiting since I was 15. Where the hell is he? And I've had those kind of questions. And Spirit's like, it's not about them. It's about you. And they don't want to hear that. And I'm like, well, then I'm not the reader for you, because I'm not going to tell you that. My role isn't to give you decisions or tell you to gussy up on Thursday because Mr. Right is coming. It's, you need to create a vibration within yourself to be receptive to love yourself, to attract that same vibration, blah, blah, blah. And people don't want to hear that. So the way I do things is like, they say stuff like that. They're like, hey, it's you. And the person may respond. And I'm like, okay, I have to jump in and explain why. It's I feel like Sybil sometimes, because you're kind of like seeing, on the inside, it's like two different personalities, and on the outside, nobody sees that. So it's really kind of like, you kind of have to set up the session beforehand, because I don't do that whole, like, let me go get so-and-so. Like, there are times where I'll channel in that manner, but not when I'm doing readings and stuff like that for people.
Well, I love what you said, because there's different, the way I can do the thing where they take over my vocal cords and they mess with my voice. That freaks people out. So I don't let clients see that. And I will say things like, hey, it's relay channeling. I'm hearing what they're saying. I'm telling you what they're saying. And I will say sometimes, and I'm sure you've had this experience. We had a long discussion off air, by the way, guys.
Yes.
We should have recorded it because it was so freaking good. But like, sometimes I've had to say, look, the guide is showing me this, but I feel like what they mean is this other thing. So, that's the relay, that's the medium where you're like in between. And I love the way you're describing it, though, because it is an energy that is mostly energy, right? We get a lot of words, but we mostly get energy. Tell us about, I love that you're saying the demonstrations it is very dramatic. I mean, when you sing, I wonder sometimes, tell me what your thoughts on this. I wonder sometimes if they don't need to be quite so dramatic, but they're making it dramatic because it brings a big audience. Because like, I can get a lot of really good information without actually letting them mess with my vocal cords, right?
Oh yeah. Like, and that's something, see, I really personally have challenge with that. And it's one of the reasons why this is the very first time I've ever been publicly open about how I channel. Because a lot of times, and this is my personal opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, but from my experience of doing this for the last like 2-3 decades or whatever,
I love the way you said 2-3 decades or whatever, since I was a kid.
Yeah, since I was a kid. But like, for whatever reason, people love cards. Like, I'm a card person. I love cards. I think they're pretty. I think the art is great. But my personal belief is these have no power. Like, really, like when you open it up, it's ink on paper. Okay. And yeah, there is an energy to them, but they've been with me so long, it's my energy. And when you get your cards, you're supposed to clear the energy. There's a whole thing. Mm-hmm. And
yep.
The thing is that, it's funny because I will channel to people, and I've only found this really when I'm doing it outside of my sphere. So like, if I'm working in my private business, most of the people that come to me get what I do. When I'm out, kind of like, because they're, sometimes you like to be out amongst the humans, I mean, you sitting in your house all day doing your work can be kind of isolating. So every once in a while, I go out, and there's a store that I love. I love the guys that own it. I love the people that work there. So I'll do like guest readings there. And most of the time, the folks that, like, when I set up my own energy in the morning, it attracts the people that get what I do. But sometimes you get folks in there and they're like, but you didn't pull me a card. And I'm like, I just like dropped some really, like, Spirit just dropped some knowledge bombs on you, dude. Like, do you know how long, like, you'd have to be in therapy for that to like boom? And, not that I love therapy. I do the therapy. I'm in the therapies. I love the therapies. I don't want to say like one's better than the other. And if you need therapy, go get it. But it's one of those things where you're kind of like, sometimes it takes you like 3 years of therapy to have an aha moment, and Spirit's just dropping it on you at that moment, and you're asking for a card. Like, that's where I kind of am like, I get it. I love the cards. I read cards. I'm not poo-pooing the cards, but what I am saying is people need to understand the power isn't the card. The power isn't the pendulum. The power isn't the crystal. The power is in the person. The power is in you. not even me. I'm the conduit that is giving you the message for you. Your spirit is saying, hey, I need to know this and I need to hear this. And energy from the universe is giving you the message. And it's our consciousness that kind of gets in the way because we are so structured and so programmed. I could go on for days. That's all.
Oh, I know. And by the way, she's coming back. We're still negotiating times and dates and stuff, just to let you guys know. But she's going to come back and we're going to do a channel predictions show, which I'm super excited about. But we got to figure out, like, when are you free? When am I free? So anyways, that is going to happen. But I love what you're saying.
Yeah. So to me, I think people get so caught up in the 3D tangibles, I guess is the best way to put it. I'm not belittling. I know that there are steps in the journey where, when I started, I was like, I always had done mediumship my whole life since I was a kid. And then because I realized people like the show, and I was a theater minor. So I'm like, people love the show. I was a singer. I get the whole entertainment business, but I had to teach myself and go to class to learn how to read tarot and then utilize and blend it because it was so separate to me. Like this was so not like even back then I was like, how am I going to put these two things together? It took me probably 2 to 3 years to connect like how the image on the card can spark an intuitive thing because I was just so, and now I'm going back to the way it was before where I don't really need them. I think, and I'll be honest, I tell my clients if they need to pull cards, pull them because to me, this is a tool, your cards, your pendulums, other divination tools, apple peels, whatever your jam is. Those are tools to get your conscious mind out of the way. That's all that is. And since I, for the most part, don't need that, I just use them for show. And the funny thing is whenever somebody says to me, well, aren't you going to pull me a card after I've done them a channeled reading? I go, sure, whatever. If that makes you happy, I pull them a card and it says the same thing I just said. And they're like, oh, thank God. I'm like, I just told you the same thing. But because it's, I just think it's funny.
I've had the same conversation. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I've had that same conversation where I'm like, are you kidding me? You spirit just gave you some amazing intent and you want to know what the 7 of Swords mean. I mean, but I love that you brought it up because in some ways I'm wondering if it's a little bit of in marketing, and that's kind of my background. There's that concept you have to hear it 3 or 4 more times. Maybe that's just another version of having to hear it 3 or 4 more times. I mean,
I think so. I think there's that. I think people, especially those who are not on the path, and it's funny because most of my clients are, there's baby woos, there's beginner woos, and then there's like intermediate woos and advanced woos. And I used to work more with the baby woos and the beginner woos, and I love them because they're so excited and they show up at the store with a grocery list of like the crystals their friends told them to buy. And they're so excited. And I'm like, oh, I love you guys. You guys are so awesome. And I help them. I love helping them. But my clients that are in my groups and that are private clients, they are more like intermediate and advanced woos in the sense that they kind of are past that. They have all this stuff. Like I told you before we went live, I just painted this so all my crystals and stuff are in a bin that I had, like it's on my to-do list today. Take all your crap out and put it back where it belongs. But I think they understand their tools, their supportiveness. Like it's kind of like ibuprofen. So to me, people take ibuprofen. This is the difference between understanding your journey and just dwindling along and, rowing along with the programming. We are programmed that you take ibuprofen so you get rid of your headache so you can just keep on going. The intention of the ibuprofen is really to give you a pain-free experience so you can rest comfortably, rest your body without having the stress of pain so that you can heal. So that's kind of the example of the journey. So, you have people that are still like the people that haven't crossed over in the Shiro's journey into like, the calling, I guess, is like there's like the calling and then you go across the abyss and then you're like, you meet your C-3PO and R2-D2 and off you go. And so if you haven't crossed that yet, you're kind of in that mode of I'm taking the ibuprofen or I'm using these crystals and shoving them in my bra so that I can just get through life versus I'm not going to shove them in my bra anymore because that just makes me have to pay more money to the lingerie company because I need a bra size to size up. And what I'm going to do is use them as support to put me in the energy that I need to be in so that I can do the work spiritually and evolve, not heal, evolve because we're not broken, evolve to the next level that I'm moving to. So it's the same thing with the cards.
I love what you just said because I want to go back to that. That is a great point. The crystals in the bra. This is a good example. Tell us some things, people listening may have heard some spiritual nonsense. Tell us some things that you've heard that you just think, it's just not true. Like, it's pervasive. It's just ridiculous.
The crystal in the bra thing, because, well, let's just face it. I'm one of those ladies that is gifted up in the area. Mm-hmm. And there ain't no room for no crystals. Okay. Now, and the thing is, if you're going to shove crystals in your bra, you need to know about chakras. So you're not shoving a root crystal up by your heart. You know what I mean? Like there's those kinds of things. And it really doesn't do anything. That's like, you might as well just pick up some dirt and shove it in there, except your boob will get all dirty. But to me, putting crystals in your bra doesn't do anything, because what you're doing is you're spiritual bypassing. Well, I'm going to take this, shove it in there, and like maybe a rose crystal will bring me a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Okay. And you still are not doing the work. Some of the other things that, like, bay leaves. I am a kitchen witch. If you're going to call me one, I love my bay leaves. You know how I love to use them? In soups and stews and sauces, because that's what they're good for. And yes, they have properties. They have magical with a K properties, but writing your intentions on one and burning it is not going to get you a good soup sauce or your wish coming true.
Huh. That's what I hadn't heard.
taking inspired action does. So like if you say, like I said, hey, universe, I would love to do more podcasts. Like literally, I don't know. I didn't even tell you this. I want to do some more podcasts or some appearances this year. I want to get myself out there more so this year. And that was like probably maybe the end of January. And literally you and I connected in a class that we're both in together. And you reached out to me and you're like, hey, I didn't even put out, hey, I would like to be on a podcast in the group, even though the teacher was like, you guys need to collaborate, la, 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 for everybody, like, go find a partner. And I was like, all right, I don't know what I'm going to do. And all of a sudden Jill's like, hey, do you want to come talk on a podcast? And we, and so to me, the inspired action there is when you put the intention out and the universe sends back the opportunity you asked for, because you're not resisting doing the thing. Because that's step one, don't resist doing the things you say you want. And step two is when it shows up, don't be like, I'm shy, I've never done this. Like I kept telling Jill, I've never done this publicly before. So like grain of salt, whatever we do. And you were just so kind about it. And I was like, okay, so you asked me, and the inspired action is saying yes and showing up. And then here we've manifested the thing because we spoke it into being. So when you are talking about things that work and things that don't work, writing your crap on, or even if you're making a vision board, you're writing a list, like all these things you're told to do, if you do them without the intention of actually looking at them, like I have my list of Q1, I do the 12-week year. And one was like, get my Akashic Records course launched and build an aligned YouTube channel. This was before I signed up for the guy who we're teaching from, which I don't know if we're allowed to say his name because I love him.
George Cow. Yeah, we're taking a
George Cow. We love him.
Yeah, he's great.
Love him. And that was, I wrote that down before he even launched that course that we are both in. So, this is great, writing your stuff down and writing affirmations that go with it. But if you're not willing to take action on those intentions and you think the universe is supposed to deliver everything like Amazon, that's not how it works. The universe is not Santa. If you're writing stuff on a bay leaf, if you're shoving crystals in your bra, expecting things to happen without you saying yes to them, even, that's problematic. That's where I love
this advice, because you're saying, like, take the action, make the intention, write it down. I mean, but take the action. There's one I got to put out there that oh my God, it's insane. I've heard this a million times. You need to be wearing white all the time. I even went to some spiritual event, and they told us at the final event we had to wear white because spirit gives you more energy if you're wearing white. That somehow, even though spirit is supposed to, we're saying that spirit can heal you, but it somehow can't get past a black t-shirt. I don't know if anybody else has heard this. Maybe I'm the only one, but I've heard it a few times, and I'm like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've heard in my life.
The only time I think I've ever seen, like, I have friends that are Kundalini yoga teachers, and I've seen them wear white, but I think that's more of a cultural thing, but I could be wrong because I don't know squat about Kundalini yoga. But I, kind of like how, when people do karate, they wear a gi. I have never heard that. And I think, honestly, if we're all energy and we're just slow moving energy, the color white or black, I think it's more why you're wearing the white. Because, like, here's the thing. If you're the kind of person who wears black all the time and someone tells you to wear white and you're like, okay, I'll wear white, but you're still exuding the energy of black, it won't penetrate anyway because you're not in that energy.
You're not yourself. I like that. You're not being yourself. You're not being authentic. That's a good way of putting it.
Well, and also, it's kind of like that when Abraham talks about the two ends of the stick. Like, you could say, I want to win the lottery, I want to be rich, I want to do all these things. But if you are on the inside in the vibration of lack and poverty and not a non-worthiness and what's the word, like not being able to receive because you have, like, you think rich people are jerks, or you don't know, you're scared if you have money you'll squander it away or some other thing. So what happens is either you don't win the lottery or you win the lottery and then all the money goes away because the energy of being in the flow of abundance isn't what you're exuding. It's not where you're vibrating. You know what I mean? Like, and I think what you're saying is being authentic in that energy, because like when you say to somebody, well, do you want to win the lottery? Even if they're in that poverty vibration, the funny thing is nobody's going to be like, no, I don't want to win the lotto. They'll be like, of course I do. I'm not a nut job. But at the end of the day, it's how do you feel about money and wealth and really what it comes down to, how do you feel about yourself and how are you? And because it's not always about just money, it could be love, people, because there's some people that make oodles of money and their love life is a hot mess because where their deservability factor isn't in that house of money or house, it depends on
we should do a whole show on that issue because you and I could talk all day about that issue because it is
I keep going.
It's mindset, it's magnets, it's energetically aligned to the prosperity of money. And I love what you're talking about with that. As somebody who channels, I always like to hear what the common questions are because some people might hear oh, well, I'm going through that too. Like, what are the common questions that you're getting a lot of right now? For me, it's somewhat seasonal. Certain times of the year, I get certain piles of questions, and other times I get different piles. What are you hearing right now? What are people wanting to know?
Really, the interesting thing is, for me, the questions I'm getting are more about how to navigate the world right now. Like,
ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, because we're dealing with such chaos and such dichotomies or polarities in the world, I don't even mean like, I don't want to wander into politics by any means because I don't think that's not where it's coming from. That's where it's manifesting. I think, that's where it's but it's not where it's coming from. Honestly, the questions are about, do we really need to suffer as human beings? The questions are what, how can we navigate all of this quote unquote negative energy, which, there's a difference between the collective energy and Akashic records and all that crap. And a lot of just, why are people so mean? Like that's like, because it's interesting to me that it's so easy to be mean behind a screen these days. And there are people, I don't know if it's because of 2020 where we all were very physically separated, and so the only way we connected was through screens for the most part. But it's almost like there was this break point between when people were raised right, as they say in the South, and now it's just kind of like the Wild West as far as how people treat each other. And I think that's the kind of questions that I'm getting, or the kinds of like conversations that I'm in right now with folks.
Well, so on that note, do you are you comfortable? Let's ask some of those questions. Can you get into a channeled state and we can ask? I've got a little list of some questions so people can kind of see what this looks like. I want people to not be so afraid of this channeling thing because it's nothing weird. I mean, it really isn't. It's just
right. And I honestly feel like I said, I do conscious channeling, so I'm not like, let me go get the universe. So
what did
it's
they
more
say? What did they say, guys? Tell me what they said.
right.
Afterwards recording to know what was said. It's like,
So
yeah,
basically,
what
what I do is like I might start talking, and it's funny. I was talking to Darren, my boyfriend, and I was like, "You're like one of the only people," I said to him, who realizes, because I know he knows, because he'll start asking more questions, because we'll be in conversation about like something we saw in the news, and it'll get to a high level concept, and then all of a sudden, like I can feel it switch, and they're here right now, and it's funny. Mm-hmm. Because I can feel it switch, and he knows by my eyes. Like I don't make eye contact, and I kind of look in various places, but my voice, how I say things is different, and how I word things is a little different, but there's not much change in my persona. And then the reason that I know that he knows is because I'm still there. And the minute he realizes that the universe is talking or source is talking, he's like, "Ooh, I can ask more questions now. Let's go."
What about the stock market? Yeah. Hey, one thing I want to tell for those of you who are not familiar, Michele has given permission to a certain spirit guides or maybe several spirit guides to enter and give information. She has done this consciously. So you do not, I'm saying this because some people are like afraid somebody's going to jump into their body. She has set up her own boundaries. She's done her own little process. We all have our process that we start before we allow beings to give information. So I'm only saying this for the couple of people watching who are like, I'm afraid I'll be at the grocery store and somebody will just jump in.
No.
That's not how it works. I wouldn't feel right if I didn't say for the person watching, like, how does that happen? Yeah.
That's given permission. That actually, before we get started, is something that I share with my people too, because people don't get, like, we talk about boundaries in the coaching world, boundaries with people. I'm like, and people ask that exact question. Well, how do I know? Like, you get that you can have spiritual boundaries too. Like if you got a spirit who's being a pain in the ass to you, sorry.
No, I love that word.
That you can tell them to go away because you still have, autonomy in your spiritual realm and in your 3D physical realm. So yeah, I have my little pink bubble. I actually had a convo and a confab with my peeps this morning. So yeah, they're ready.
Awesome. Okay. So are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. So we're just going to ask, is suffering necessary in the human existence?
It's not necessary. It is not. It's because we choose it. And I know that sounds crazy because nobody would say, like if somebody said, would you like to suffer today? Nobody's going to say, why, yes, please, thank you. But in actuality, suffering is unnecessary because we have free will and we are taught that you're not supposed to have by virtue of being, that you are supposed to work and you're supposed to be put in a position of disadvantage before you can gain anything. Or if you gain something, you have to lose something. And that's something that is not there. And there's this also what's coming through is more about hope and faith, because you have a lot of folks, and it doesn't really matter their religious perspective because it's not about religion. It's more about people running around saying that they trust in the universe, they trust in God, they trust in whoever their deity is, whoever they see as that which is bigger than themselves, that, it's all up to them, it's all up to them. And there's this abdication of accountability, responsibility, and their own power. And in the human condition, for whatever reason, we've been taught that we don't want to be responsible. And responsibility comes with punishment, and it doesn't. And that in itself creates suffering. And in doing all that, we separate ourselves from our connection when we are divine beings, because we are all extensions of source energy. And as such, we are source energy, which means we are divine beings, which means we create whatever we want. And if we don't realize we have that power, and other people maybe do, they can focus your energy in a way that you're not in control of because you've given it up, voluntarily or not. So it also comes down to really having faith in the fact that you are divine. The divine is a creator. We are creators inherently. And we are creating, whether we're consciously abdicating our power or not, the fact is you're creating whatever's going on, whether you want to be responsible for it or you are consciously not being responsible for it. And if you can step back into the divinity, that which is within you, then there is no suffering. There is no, no matter where your soul contract has put you, it doesn't matter, because you are always in charge of how you choose to experience whatever is going on. And the other half of this is hope. The human race needs to understand that hope is such a powerful thing. And right now, there is so little of it in the community. There is so little hope. There is so little, there's such an external value placed on other people and other happenings outside of self. And there's a lot of, if that person would do something different, I would be happy. If this would go a different way, I would be happy. And instead of knowing that you have hope and faith to lean on, because when you do that, it steps up. And that is contrary to what we're programmed with. We are programmed with trying to be in control. We are programmed with, if you're not in control, you're doing something wrong. And in fact, there is no control to be had. There's no control to be had except for choosing how you want to experience something. And when you choose how you want to experience it and you're authentic in that, and you stick in that vibration of that's how it's going to be, then that is what comes. That's why suffering is not necessary, because we are unconsciously choosing to hate the situation we're in. And that goes for whether we are witnessing suffering on television, or even as close as watching a loved one transition in a way that isn't comfortable to watch, from, say, a chronic or some sort of disease, the suffering of others close to us on a smaller level of maybe they're, going through a hard time financially, or whatever it is that we put value on and we attach ourselves to, versus saying, I can choose to be a light here, or I can choose to be in the darkness. And if I choose light, yes, that comes with responsibility, but that responsibility is to create more light. Okay. So we can choose not to suffer if we want to, and not by saying, I make this external experience heavenly, so to speak, but more, I make this experience something that I can create a higher vibrational energy for myself and those around me who are going through it as well.
Okay, so along those lines, that's a great segue into the next question, which is, how do I raise my vibrational frequency when I am buried in struggle?
So that is a good point. And most humans, they don't like to be, some of them like to dwell in that low vibration because it's easy. It's easy because you're there and you don't have to work. And we view this as a climb up the ladder. And the fact is, you don't have to climb up the ladder. All you have to do is ask yourself, what am I feeling here? Why am I feeling this? What is going on for me? And then understand that the vibration, even if you go from despair to anger, that's a move. That's an upward upward vibrationally speaking. You can't go from absolute despair to absolute elation or ecstasy in one jump. It doesn't happen that way. And that's part of the experience we chose to come here with. And the fact is that if you are moving from desperation or despair into anger, and then even into apathy, and then into feeling good, then joy, and then back on. So giving yourself permission, to feel what you're feeling so that you can process that emotion, understanding where is it coming from. Is it coming from this situation? Is it coming from past life situation? Is it coming from somewhere else? Where is it coming from? And then just allowing yourself to feel it and do whatever release you need to do to process it, and then giving yourself permission to move forward. And knowing that that doesn't have to be a physical manifestation of outward expression. It can be inward, the inner work and moving forward. And as you move up, give yourself permission to do that. That's something humans don't like to do. They don't like to give themselves permission to be happy because for whatever reason, we've been programmed in the human condition to always want to be in a place of disadvantage. And happiness is not a place of disadvantage. And if we stay in the place of disadvantage, then we can always be controlled. So if we can move from that place of being in disadvantage and allow ourselves the space to feel more high vibrational things, we can. The other thing I love to share with people, and they might think it's silly and that's okay, is music. Because music and spirit are so vibrationally intertwined. So if you listen to a piece of music that is a high vibrational piece, there are songs that are low vibrational, but if you listen to one that was intentionally written with a high vibration to it, that will shift your vibration. It may not solve the problem, but it frees up your energy so that you can choose to step into an observational mode versus being in the situation. Sometimes that is what you need. So sometimes it's really doing the work of internal introspection to move you into a new vibration. It may be changing your viewpoint and vibration through utilizing other means, such as music, such as, going and doing something different so that you can free up that energy that is so stuck and focused, and move that focus onto something different so that you can make a conscious decision to choose to shift your vibration by giving yourself a different perspective. Those are the kinds of things that help shift that.
So I love that, Michele. And Michele, come back. So this is a great preview. Everybody got to see what that was like. And I hope you guys all got to see that there's nothing weird about that. Michele is still there.
I mean, I am weird.
Yeah, I mean, me too. But
weird, but I'm like the good kind of weird.
It's not creepy. It's not. I don't know why anybody thinks it was creepy. There's nothing creepy about that. Anyway, so you and I could talk about this all day, and we actually have. But it is kind of time to wrap up the show a little bit. So, Michele, is there any final things you want to make sure people know that I didn't think to ask about? Something that's important to you?
I just feel like people need to know that it's to give themselves permission to feel their feels, to give themselves permission to choose joy, that there is no trade-off. There is no, if I feel this or I receive this, that someone has to give something up for it. There is not any of that trade-off going on. And bottom line, people need to start being kinder to themselves. I've heard, I think we talked earlier about what's going on, and Spirit was talking about people being unkind and stuff. And I think what that boils down to is, if you're on social media or out at the grocery store or wherever you are, and you feel this call to judgment, please understand the reason you're feeling that call is because there's an unkindness going on within you that you're trying to, I call judgment, it's an impulse buy. It's the candy bar at the checkout line that makes you feel better right then, and then you feel like crap later because you're like, well, oh man, I judged that because you're really judging you. That's the whole thing. If we are all one, the fact is when I judge somebody else, I'm judging myself. And the reason I'm judging somebody else is because I'm judging myself and trying to make myself feel better instead of feeling my feels and saying, you know what, it's okay for me. It's safe for me to feel whatever I'm feeling. And then, you know what, I can choose to be I can choose to feel differently about myself. I can choose to love myself, and that's okay. Even if society thinks that's cheesy. It's not cheesy.
I love that. That's a great, I love the impulse purchase analogy because we can all relate to that. And you're right. In that moment, that release of you are so stupid. It feels so good. It's a little bit of a high. And then later on you realize, oh man, I just contributed to collective garbage. I don't want to be making a deposit in that bank. There's so much money in that bank already.
Amen. Yes.
I love it. So
no
Michele,
more dirty money.
No more dirty money. I know. I will. I'm going to put a link in the description, obviously, on how to get a hold of you. And I will just say, please like and subscribe to this, not just because it helps us both out, but also because that way you'll make sure that you can find us again later. YouTube algorithms can be quirky. So if you don't subscribe, you may not find me again. So Michele, how do people find you? I'm going to put your links in the description, but what's your website? Some people like to hear it. What's your thing?
My website is soulcoachstudio.com, and you can email me at soulcoachstudio@gmail.com.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay, well, thanks so much, guys. I appreciate you coming for this amazing episode, and thank you so much, Michele, for sharing insight and information. She is going to come back. We are going to do a channeled predictions for 2024. I'm looking forward to that because I've already mentally created some of the questions. I'm so excited.
Oh, Lord.
Ooh, no pressure, Michele. No pressure. It's me fun. You guys are going to love it. You guys are going to love watching the information because I love getting channeled because a lot of times you guys, we talked about this off air. Sometimes Spirit doesn't want to answer a question because they just don't care about that. Like, who cares what kind of car you're going to get next year? Like, why don't you learn how to protect the health of your body more? But anyway, that's right. That's a different. So bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye, guys. Appreciate you coming. See you again soon.